good looking SGs on the street. This one's within the top 3. Welcome back, Troglodytes, your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Bonus points to anybody who understands the Flight of the Conchords reference there. Today we're documenting a Guitar of the Week SG, which if you're not familiar with the Guitar of the Week series, you can check out this episode to learn about every single one. Essentially, in 2007, Gibson was feeling extra saucy and decided to make 47 limited edition models in 1 year, in which they created 400 of each iteration. That was very ambitious. So ambitious, the next year they cut it down to Guitar of the Month. Some of them were really cool. Some of them are kind of lame. Personally, as far as SGs go, this is one of my favorites. So let's go ahead and take a look here. All right, we've got some sort of a beautiful SG custom with gold hardware. So this one was week number 38, and basically what they did is they took the popular Classic Custom series, where they took a Les Paul Custom but made it within Gibson USA production and turned it into an SG Custom, because generally speaking, you didn't find USA produced SG Customs. Now, if you're confused with what I'm saying, all Gibson guitars are made in USA. However, they have a Gibson USA branding, which is their production line of guitars, and then they have the Gibson Custom Shop. That's one way you can differentiate between the two, calling it Gibson USA, Gibson Custom Shop. But what makes this one different from the other Classic Customs is the fact that we actually get real mother of pearl inlays on an ebony fretboard. That's a really nice touch. And you basically get the Custom Shop full-on mother of pearl headstock logo. It's not your typical Gibson USA style that uses acrylic for your inlays. Another unique feature to this particular guitar is a lot of SG Customs feature triple humbuckers. This particular one only utilizes 2, so that could be a pro or a con depending on who you are. And then there was one other cosmetic difference that you might say, hey, this one doesn't look like all the other 38s. And that's because somebody has modified this one for a black pickguard, which looks really good, don't get me wrong. But the white is the iconic look, so we will be restoring that today with the original pickguard that was also in the case. And another replaced part on this one is the truss rod cover. These initially had the special SG brass truss rod cover. However, I will agree that one's kind of tacky. I see why somebody changed it, but whatever, it's kind of a cool point. I had actually purchased this one from a viewer of the show a couple of months back. I just hadn't had the time to review it until today. It's got a lot of the original case candy. But now I bet you're curious, if this is within the top 3, what are the other 2? Now keep in mind, everything is subjective, but I would personally say of the SGs, week number 6 is one of my favorites. It's just a regular black 61 SG standard, but it gets gold hardware and tinted lacquer. That was such a new thing, especially from Gibson USA offering it at that point in time. Now, unfortunately, now that these things are like getting near 20 years old, some guitars have aged naturally, so a lot of people just don't realize that was a special feature. They called the antiquing of the finish. And then week number 3 was also pretty cool with a 68 standard Fireburst SG, but Guitar Center also did limited editions of that, so that's not as special. For me, those are my 3 favorites. But week 1 was an SG Supreme bass. Week 10 had 3 single coils. 17 was this weird SG Special with a jazz pickguard. 18 was an SG Supreme bass. 21, another 3 pickup one, but this time with an ash body. 26, a straight up white 61 standard. Week 30, we finally get the ebony version of the 3 blade style pickups. 32, we get a pretty cool blacked out EMG 68 style standard. In 35, you get a faded 61 reissue, which means it has a satin finish instead of gloss. Week 37 was kind of a reimagined vintage early 60s SG Special with 2-pneumatic bridge and P90 pickups. Then to end it out, we got week number 38, which we're documenting today. So let's go ahead and throw this on the workbench to take an individual look at its parts and specs. There we go. Now it's looking a little bit more normal. I hate working on 68 style SGs because they're just a pain in the butt. To remove your pickguard, you have to ruin your setup simply because your posts here are wider than what it allows it to pop off on. And then your pickguard actually acts as your pickup surrounds. So swapping the pickups over to this pickguard was a real pain in the butt too, but I managed to do it. It's just mildly more cumbersome than a regular ring because it's kind of awkward. So here's what the backside of the pickups look like. It's a 57 Classic in the neck. I know the stickers are very faded, but that's a 1010 of 07. Then this is a 57 Classic Plus. You see the 5.7, then a plus after that? That's your signification on that. And this one dates to 1012 of 07. So what that means for you is the neck reads 7.89 k ohms and your bridge should be slightly wound hotter at 8.06 to give you a little bit more oomph. and your middle position for fun, just short of 4. Here's what our routes look like for this model. Got AC right here for aged cherry, then you can see the neck tenon running into the body. Then down here we have the markings of SG/CC, Classic Custom SG. The route style is kind of interesting, very rectangular and blocky. Those additional cutouts into the body right here, that's for the legs of the pickups and height adjustment screws. But aged cherry is right, this is a really dark Merlot finish. Most times SGs are like very bright cherry colors, whereas this one's just a little bit darker than usual, so you could technically say it has a unique color scheme to it. However, I wouldn't go raving about it saying, oh yeah, it's as dark as ox blood. If anything, it's the white pickguard that steals the show on this one. But it is a 2-piece body. As far as the bridge and tailpiece, it's just your regular PW branded one, and the gold is slightly worn through on the top of the bridge. Tailpiece is your typical gold full weight one of the era. As far as the controls go, we've got 2 volumes, 2 tones, 3-way selector switch, and output jack located on the front. Also, a note of the knobs, I've seen 2 different sets that appear to be correct on this model. Some of them came with what we have right here, other ones actually came with witch hats. And the witch hats make a lot of sense because it's kind of like trying to be a real 68 custom. A lot of these higher end Guitar of the Weeks were actually trying to be a signature guitar of someone's, but they weren't able to get official clearance. This one might have been stylized after a SG that Angus Young used that was black and had the white guard. They just kind of toyed with that. Moving on from mahogany body, we've got the mahogany neck with the ebony fretboard. And this is why I want to document every Guitar of the Week guitar and have it in my collection. In my recap episode, I incorrectly stated these are pearloid inlays because that's what most classic customs have, but no, these are real deal mother of pearl. Sometimes photos can make it hard to tell, but yeah, that's the real stuff. But you also have to remember, 2007, that's only a few years after every single Les Paul custom got moved out of Gibson USA into the custom shop. So this is something that's become increasingly more desirable as the model has aged, because some people just don't even remember a point in time when Gibson USA made the customs. Now it's like 2003, 2004-ish, the transitional period, outside of specific year reissues. We're just talking the regular base model custom. Typical 24 3/4 inch scale and 12-inch fretboard radius. Our nut measures 1.69 inches, increasing to 2.09 by the 12th. First fret neck depth of 0.84 and 0.92 by the 12th. And that sounds pretty slim, but it's honestly nice and rounded without being overly chunky or overly small. Here it is at the 1st fret and the 12th fret. You can see the rounded C shape. It's just not overly chunky. But now we move on to our headstock. Again, they basically just pulled this veneer out of the custom shop, but made it within Gibson USA. That's why it looks so good. Truss rods in perfect shape. And you don't see this style truss rod too often, but they just borrowed this from the SG Select, which also came out around the exact same time as these. So they probably just had them laying around, decided to make it a little bit more special. Very common for people to replace them. Now here's something I'm not entirely too sure of. This whole guitar is relatively clean, so I think this might have been one of these slightly tinted lacquer versions. That might be why they called it aged cherry, because there is a slight yellow hue. It's not quite as extremely ambered over as the antiqued ones, but I think there might have been something to that effect on this model. I could be wrong, but you can definitely see the aging on the headstock, as well as the lacquer on the side of the neck, and as compared to our nut. Something else that kind of backs up that fact is they went for the gold hardware probably to accentuate that, but look at our knobs. These are not the usual clear ones. They have some slight age to them as well. They're slightly golden over the top, rather than your usual pure silver toppers. To be clear, the knobs themselves have not been aged. It's just the topper color. Moving on to the back, let's take a look at our electronics. Pretty regular stuff here, just Gibson branded pots. Everything looks factory stock to me, ceramic disc capacitors. Then a factory employee sign off, CR, sometime in October of 2007, with a Switchcraft output jack. Something I do find incredibly strange about this run is white pickguard, fancy truss rod cover, but yet back plate, and it is correct. We have a strap button at the bottom, as well as right here at the base of the heel on the body. And then we can move up our mahogany neck. Some nice wood grain, a little bit of flame even. Kind of hard to see on the workbench.
It is important to note that where the binding ends and the neck truly begins, that there is a very slight line right there on this one. That's pretty common on these. The same thing can happen along the nut. You see that on the treble side of this particular example. Otherwise, this example is actually pretty clean. It just has some minor impressions. I saw a couple right here by the output jack. And then your typical polishing swirls because it's a dark finish. We've got gold Grover tuners and our serial number, which is very hard to make out, but 02717, so that makes it a 2007, 271st day of the year. Initial batch, number 386. And that's not at a 400, that's just of the neck stamp that day. This is number 386. Guitar of the week wasn't numbered in the slightest, but guitar of the month, that's the one that got the white stamp at the base of the headstock. All said and done, this one weighs 6 pounds, 14.5 ounces. Let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how it sounds. Now that we know all about the Guitar of the Week SG Classic Custom, what are my final thoughts on this? Definitely wasn't my favorite SG, but if I was given this and I was not allowed to look at the backside of the pickups or the serial number or anything else, just the front, I would honestly say it's a custom shop SG from like the early 2000s. So they did a really good job on these, and I think that's why they don't show up on the used market too often. That, and I just think a lot of people don't realize that it's part of the Guitar of the Week series because it's just such an interesting guitar. I'm definitely happy that I picked this one up. Condition's good enough for my collection as I continue on my search for all the Guitar of the Week models in relatively clean shape. Alright, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed documenting this piece with me today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, consider subscribing. I post videos like this every day, and you might even enjoy this next one.